Welcome to Mastery Circle's Success Talk Show. I'm Mike Rich, and I'm extremely honored and delighted to be talking with leading business and professional development expert Brian Tracy, who is the best-selling author of over 54 books and a world-renowned seminar speaker. Brian has written and produced more than 300 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement. In the past 30 years, he's consulted for more than 1,000 companies and has spoken to over 5 million people worldwide on the subjects of personal and professional development. Brian Tracy is one of the most sought-after success experts who has literally transformed the lives of millions of people. Brian has been very gracious and generous to talk with us today about the importance of goal setting and how you can make this new year a huge success. So please pay close attention. Brian, many people are really familiar with your work, but I bet they'd be fascinated to know a little bit about your background. How did you become such a renowned expert in success?
Well, there's a principle in psychology that says that we seek most for, as adults, what we felt we were most deprived of as children. And I grew up poor. I had no approval. I had no money. My family didn't have any money. I bombed out of high school. I started working at washing dishes and construction. And then I started asking, why is it that some people are more successful than others? And I began to follow that track. And sometimes a question will lure you. And this question has lured me all my life. And I started to ask successful people and read their books and listen to their audio programs and go to their seminars. And I found that successful people did things differently. That everybody starts off the same place, but successful people do things differently. So I started to do what successful people were doing, and I started to get results out of all proportion to anything that I'd imagined. I literally went from rags to riches in less than a year. I literally, from working at laboring jobs, sleeping on the floor, having one pair of shoes with holes in it, and going from door to door, straight commission, selling, and not making any sales. I had my own apartment, my own car, a pocket full of money, and a staff working for me. And it was because I read and learned what other successful people did, and I did the same thing. So now all my life, from then on to now, I've been wanting to share this with other people so that they can jump the line, if you like. They can shorten the learning curve, and they can achieve their goals far faster than they could if they didn't have these ideas.
So what is it in particular about goal setting that you're so passionate about?
Well, it was goal setting that changed my life. I remember sleeping on the floor of a friend's apartment, and there was a book in the bottom drawer, this old junky furniture, and it said, if you want to be successful, write down a series of goals. So I took a scrap of paper and I wrote down 10 goals, and I promptly lost the book and lost the piece of paper. But I remember the goals, and 1 month later, my whole life had transformed. It was almost like pushing down a dynamite detonator, go boom, and suddenly my income went up dramatically. I discovered the way to sell to 3 out of 4, 4 to 5 people I spoke to. I was able to buy clothes. I moved into an apartment, and everything had been written down on that list. And I realized that I had discovered something extraordinary. And so I began a lifelong study of goal setting, both learning and practicing. And it shortened my learning curve substantially.
Oh, I imagine, yeah. Well, you're one of the permanent experts in goal setting and psychology of achievement in particular. So you studied this really well. Why is it so important then, if you're going to tell someone who's new to this idea, like why should they have goals?
Well, if you can imagine driving a car with no steering wheel and really crowded traffic on slippery roads, well, that's what life is like. Most people, about 97% of adults, have no written goals and plans. Or if you can imagine having very clear written goals and plans and knowing exactly where you are and exactly where you're going. Sometimes an analogy I use is I say, imagine that everything that you could want in life, riches, health, happiness, success, prosperity, everything is in a briefcase. And the briefcase is on the back porch of a house somewhere in a major city near you. All you have to do is go to that house, go to the back porch, and get the briefcase. And there's all the money that you want and health and happiness and everything else. So go ahead. Well, first person, well, where is it? Oh, no, you have to figure it out for yourself. You just have to drive around and drive around and drive around this huge city, which may have millions of people, until you finally find the right back porch with the right briefcase. Well, the average person would search for their whole life and never find it. But what if I said to you, here is the address, here is a GPS, here's the exact instructions to get there, here's a map, all you have to do is go straight from here to there. Well, you could accomplish it very, very fast. And that's what happens when you have clear written goals and plans and a checklist and an order and a sequence of things to do it. you accomplish things literally 10 times faster than the average person.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm Mike Rich, and we're with the Mastery Circle's Success Talk Show, talking with Brian Tracy. Brian, the New Year is the one time of year where everyone gets really excited about their goals, and they want to prioritize, their New Year resolutions, and they go at it.
Right.
But then so many of us fail. So a couple of questions. Why is it the one time a year we all get serious about our goals, and why is it that so many goals peter out?
Well, human beings love the idea of a new beginning, a rebirth, a renaissance, and emerging from the ashes like the phoenix. That was the symbol for my first major seminar. It was the phoenix bird. I call it the phoenix seminar, where a person consumed themselves in ashes and recreated themselves as something new. As you know from your experience in China they have the Chinese New Year, and everything shuts down for a month. The entire country, you cannot get anything done because everybody is busy reorganizing, replanning, eliminating their debts, setting up new plans for the new year. So it's a wonderful time. To the end of December, beginning of January, we all do it. We sit down, and this is a recommendation that I give. I always say, especially as we're coming to the end of this year, is say, next year is going to be the very best year of my life so far. Next year is going to be the very best year of my life so far. And then you say, if this year, coming year, was the very best year of my life, what would happen? What would I accomplish if this was a really great year? And then you let your mind float freely. You say, well, if this was the best year, I would increase my income to this. I would cut my weight to that. I would start doing more of this. I would learn this subject. I would get out of debt. I would upgrade my skills in this area. I'd get into the top 10% of my field. In other words, you let your mind just play with the idea. And one of the things I teach people is I say, imagine that you have a magic wand. And I was teaching this in Vietnam just last week, as a matter of fact. And a woman came up to me and said, can I have that pen? And I said, so my example was, imagine you could wave a magic wand and make your life perfect in every way. How would it be different from today? And what would be the first step you'd have to take? And so she came up to me, and the week before, a man came up to me at my seminar in Russia and asked the same thing in Ekaterinburg. And he said, can I have that pen? I said, no, that's an expensive pen. It's a Mont Blanc, for heaven's sake. They said, I'd just love to have that pen, because then whenever I was thinking about goals, I could just wave your pen and think about you. And the woman in Hanoi, they call it Ho Chi Minh City now, she said, I'll buy that from you. I said, no. I said, I was using another pen. This is a $300 Parker rollerball. You can't, no, I'll just give it to me. I said, no, I won't give it. Well, I want it. And then she said later, if you could offer a symbolic magic wand in your seminars, everybody would buy it at the end of the seminar. But just imagine you have a magic wand now. And the way you do that is you imagine no limitations. You imagine your ideal future. You imagine that you could do or be or have anything that you want. You just wave a magic wand and make your life perfect. What would it look like? And this is the starting point, because you can't hit a target that you can't see. So when you start thinking, if my life was perfect, well, this is one of the things I would have. I wouldn't be driving this rusted out old clunker, or I'd have my own home, or I wouldn't weigh this amount, or I would be earning far more than this. So you start to fantasize, and you start to get a picture of what you would want to be or have or do. And as you develop this picture, we find there's something really exciting, Mike. There's a direct relationship between the clarity of the picture you have of what you would like to have or be in the future, and how rapidly you attract it into your life, and how rapidly you move toward it. I have a good friend who tells a famous story on television all the time about how he tore a picture of an absolutely beautiful house on the other side of the country in a wealthy neighborhood out of a magazine where it was only Better Homes and Gardens or Architectural Digest, and he posted that on his wall, and he said, that's the house I'm going to live in someday. 5 years later, his whole life had changed. He'd moved from one part of the country to another part of the country to another part of the country, and actually to this city where this house existed, and he'd forgotten about it because he'd packed everything up and put it away years ago. And he was taken out by a real estate agent, and they walked in and looked at the house, and he said, OMG, OMG, this is the house in the picture. And he bought the house. And then later, when they were unpacking, he found the picture of the house that he'd been looking at on his board for 3 or 4 years before he packed up. And you say, well, that's a remarkable thing. But I can tell you stories for the next 3 hours of people who had this clear visual picture, and in no time at all, the picture came true. So the starting point, it doesn't cost you anything to have a mental picture. So the starting point, I tell people, for example, is if you want to have your dream house, okay? If you ask anybody, I'll ask a whole audience, does anybody here fantasize about having their dream house sometime in the future? Everybody says, good. What does it look like? Oh, geez, well, you know, it's got bedrooms and it's got a good view from the back. No, that's not enough. That's not enough. So what you do, and Barbara and I did this, my wife, when we were living in a rented house, starting our business and really struggling financially, we bought Architectural's Digest, Better Homes and Gardens, Southern Homes, beautiful, and about 4 or 5 magazines, and we subscribed to them. Once a month they would come, and we go through the magazines and we tear out pictures, and we start to put them together in composites, and then we created a scrapbook of pictures of what the bedrooms would look like and what the outside would look like and what the ceilings would look, roofs and everything else. And we came up with 42 things that we wanted in a house. This is when we could barely pay the rent, all right? I'm driving used cars. And so we came up with 42 things, a list. And that's another thing, make a list. Make a list. Good grief. And our fortunes changed. Our business became successful. We went from a rented house to a house that we bought in a beautiful neighborhood, and then our business became more successful. And then we moved again and began looking for houses, and we looked at 150 houses, and one day we walked into the house we're living in today. We walked into the house, and it was the house that we had imagined, fantasized, written down, dreamed about, and we looked at each other, and there was absolutely no question, no comment, no question. This was the house. And it was the right price, and the right terms, and the right condition, and the right neighborhood, and the right I mean, it was just amazing. It was everything that we had written down, and we found the list of the 42 things that only lacked one thing, and that was a built-in vacuum cleaner system, which is kind of rare, so we hired a maid. So in other words, some people say, well, yeah, what if it doesn't work? No. The question is, what if it does work? Right. What if it does work? Then look what could happen to your life if it does work. Anyway, so.
Right, no, that's really empowering. Okay, so I'm sold. I want this new year to be really successful. I want to change my life. So I created a list of my goals, and now I've got some to-dos.
Yeah.
So you have a certain formula on how to decide the real to-dos to do.
Right.
And then also some advice for people who might get stuck.
Well, you know, here's a great insight that I learned from a good friend of mine. He said the most important question you ask when you set a big goal is, what kind of a person am I going to have to become to achieve that goal? You know, I used to say, if you want to marry a millionaire, if you're a woman, then you must become the kind of woman that a millionaire would want to marry. If he meets you, or he would say, this is the kind of woman that I want to marry. And people are really offended by that. They should love me for myself. No, it's not the way the world works. And if you want to become really successful in your business, you have to ask, what kind of a person am I going to have to become to be successful in my business? And what kind of behaviors am I going to have to practice each day in order to become that person? So the very first thing, let us say that you want to earn a lot more money. Well, I think everybody should have as a goal every year a goal of doubling their income. You know, if you only increase your income 50%, well, that won't be too bad. But set a goal and then say, what are all the different ways that I could change what I'm doing so that I earn twice as much? And number one is you can dramatically upgrade your key skills. And one of the things we say, there's only 3 skills that account for 90% of your income in any field. And you have to identify what those 3 skills are. And then you have to realize, and this was a changing point in my life, is that all skills are learnable. So therefore, if you're here and you want to achieve this goal, the only thing standing between you is the lack of a skill. It's almost like there's a pothole. Well, you can fill it in by learning. And you can learn anything that you need to learn. And the more you learn, the more you can learn. So I say, never let yourself be held back because you're lacking a skill. So a question that we ask, and I love this question because I ask it myself, what one skill, if you're absolutely excellent at it right now, overnight, magic wand, suddenly you're excellent at it, would help you the most to double your income? And when you ask that question, everybody knows the answer. And I say, well, it's just a learnable skill. Yeah, but I don't like it. I don't like prospecting. I don't like calling people and so on. Well, get over it. You know, people don't like weightlifting, and people don't like running and jogging. There's a great study that was done, one of the greatest studies on success. They said, what is the common denominator of success? Looking at 13 years of study, the answer was, successful people make a habit of doing what unsuccessful people don't like to do. And so the question is, what is it that unsuccessful people don't like to do? Or what is it that successful people don't like to do? Well, the answer is it's the same thing that unsuccessful people don't like to do, but successful people do it anyway because that's the cost of success. You know, H.L. Hunt, richest oil billionaire in the world at his time, was asked, what's the key to success? He said, well, first of all, determine exactly what you want. And second of all, determine the price you're going to have to pay to get it. And then third of all, get busy paying the price. Just get on with it. And I always say, you know, the time is going to pass anyway. So where are you going to be in 3 to 5 years? Well, if you don't make any changes, the more you do of what you're doing, the more you'll get of what you've got. So if you don't make any changes, you're going to be exactly where you are today in 3 to 5 years, and maybe even worse off, especially if you're in a competitive field and your competitors are determined to be more successful. But on the other hand, 5 years from now, if you wanted to, you could physically walk around the world. 5 years from now, you could learn any skill. You could become a neurosurgeon, a nuclear scientist, a millionaire or a multimillionaire. In 5 years, you could do almost anything if you get started.
That's right, that's right. Well, you're watching the Mastery Circle's Success Talk Show with Brian Tracy. I'm Mike Rich, host of the program. So people are going to look at this and they go, well, I want to change my life. I want to go to the next level. I'm going to write my goals. So what advice would you give them for the common misconceptions or mistakes that you see when people go this path and start doing their goals?
Well, the first mistake that people make, Mike, is people think they already have goals. If I were to ask a room full of adults, does anybody here have goals? Every hand would go up. Absolutely. I say, good, that's wonderful, because I can sort of cut out this part of my program. Just take out your list of goals and your plans for achieving those goals that you work on every day with your priorities and just show them to the person next to you. And if you can all do that, then we can just pass over this part. And there's dead silence in the room because nobody has written goals. You see, the biggest mistake that I or anybody makes is you think you already have goals when you don't really have goals at all. What you have is wishes. What you have is fantasies, illusions. I say people in mental asylums have the same illusions. I want to be rich, and I want to be thin, and I want to be happy, and I want to have a nice family. Everybody has that. That's common goals of mankind. All human beings want the big four. They want to be rich, they want to be thin, they want to be popular, and they want to be have nice relationships. So those aren't goals at all. Only a goal, like a blueprint to build a house, is laid down on paper, detailed, worked out, with a list of things that you need to do and priorities that you need to set and skills that you need to develop in order to achieve the goals, obstacles you need to overcome, information that you need to get, people whose cooperation you require, and then organized in a plan with a checklist that you work on every day. And with that, suddenly you'll start to accomplish extraordinary things. If you just do 3 things, if all you do is write down something that you want, make it clear and specific and write it in the present tense, like I earn X number of dollars by December 31st of next year. That's a very clear, specific instruction from your conscious mind to your subconscious. Second of all, you set a deadline, which you just did, December 31st. And third of all, you make a list of everything that you will need to do to achieve the goal. And as you think of new things, add them to the list. And fourth of all, get started on the list. And fifth of all, and this will make you rich, happy, and thin, is do something every day on your major goal, 7 days a week. This is one of the greatest success secrets I have ever learned. Do something every day on your major goal. And the cumulative effect, almost like a snowball, starts to build momentum, and you start to move faster and faster towards your goals, and your goals start to roll faster and faster toward you. The key is to write it down, make a plan, do something every day.
That's brilliant. You've heard it right from the goals guru himself, Brian Tracy. Look, if you're serious about your goals and you want to make this new year a true success, then this is the time to really prepare yourself. So I guess my final question is, how can people get started? How can people get serious about achieving their goals and achieve the right mindset? That's such a key thing, is the mindset, so they can get past the New Year resolutions and that phase where they've actually launched themselves into the new year.
Well, there's a philosophical principle that says every change in your life begins when your mind collides with a new idea and you go off in a different direction. I've recently created a webinar training program, and I'd like to invite everyone to attend it at no cost. It's free, and in 45 minutes I cover the 12-step method for setting and achieving your goals. Starting off with intense desire. What is it that you really, really want to have in your life? And then walking you through the 12 steps. And it's really quite amazing. So if you'd like to experiment, learn these key 12 steps, so to register for my free goals webinar, where you can just sign up and watch it for free.
I hope you found this program very informative. We've been really fortunate to hear the advice from Brian Tracy, and if you're really serious about your New Year's success and achieving your goals, well, this is your opportunity. You can sign up for the free webinar and take your life to the next level in the new year. Brian, thank you so much for being a part of the program today. I really enjoyed it.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.